go.
Stream health is okay. Check resolution. Then it goes away for some odd reason. Oh, okay. So we're here to answer a Discord question by NEWP Visuals, who wants to know how to build a kind of matrix of tiles and then project different parts of a source texture, in this case a spout texture, onto different parts of the tiles. And here's an automated way to kind of do it. So this is kind of the effect that we would get. Each one's a separate tile that has a separate texture on it. As we move them, they each have the different parts of the texture, that source image, but it's still live. It's still that original spout texture. So how do we do this? I'm going to do File New. And the first thing we want to do is we want to build our tile, our basic tile unit. So whatever that might be for you. I think you said 96 pixels by 96, so you'd want to divide your source image pixels by 96 and to figure out how many tiles you'd have. But I'm just going to assume kind of some sort of tile, horizontal tile amount here. So I'm going to create some copies.
Do 16 by 9.
Yeah, that's good. So what is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. 9, 3, 6, and 9. Okay, so this is a 16 by 9 texture. So the next thing we're going to be using is, if you go to emitters, there's this thing called a Decal Emitter. And what this does is it projects onto a surface a texture, or a material actually, and then we can swap out that material's texture to be the input texture. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually raise this above, and I'm going to just adjust some of these parameters. I'm going to set the spray distance to be a little bit longer, and then I'm going to set the dimensions to be the dimensions of this entire structure. You might want to center it with this. You can like parent it and child it, but I'm just going to approximate it for now. And set the width of this thing. So the way the Decal Emitter works is that when we set its position in the space, it sprays itself onto all these objects. But then after that, they can be moved, and they will maintain that offset with respect to that original, where it was originally sprayed. So when we move it, it recalculates that spray and it regenerates those materials. So as long as we don't move it and we keep it fixed, that initial state will preserve, and however it was when you first started it. So our trick here, it also sprays on the ground, so we might not want it to be on the ground as well. So we can just pull this whole thing off the ground so that it only reaches to the bounding box of that spray distance. So now it lives on there, and we can go and swap out this thing's. If you go to the Decal Emitter, you see it has material, the default Decal material. If you go and swap out its diffuse texture and set this to our spout texture, which we have here running in this little like test thing, so I'm going to import a new input 2D texture, which already is bounded to spout. I'm going to just drag and drop that onto the diffuse texture. And by default, the Decal Emitter also has an opacity map set under translucency, so we just set that to none. So there we are. We've projected it now onto our surface, and so long as we don't move the Decal Emitter, this will stay fixed onto these tiles. So now we can take these tiles and move them around, and it should maintain that same. So if we take, let's say, a sphere, make this not movable, take an emitter, or take an attractor, interactions, physics, attractor, stick it in the center of this thing. And move this up here. There you go. Now they all have that original tiled image.
And they're constantly updating?
Yep. So they still have that live update on it.
Interesting. Does that mix with the underlying material?
Yeah, it does, yeah. So whatever
so if you had, does it
yep.
just totally override it? Or?
No, it just applies a decal on top. So you can imagine a thin layer that's actually on top of this.
So could you end up like with 2 decal emitters?
No, they will fight each other if you do two at the same time. Yeah, there's no layering explicitly for the decal emitters. It's just there's like a slight offset and then they'll kind of fight each other.
And if it's transparent, it would show
yes.
you.
Yep. So if you have an opacity map, it will show through to what's underneath. So we can,
interesting.
yeah, we can do that now actually. So if we go to the decal emitter, go into this thing, and the translucency map, we do, let's say, a noise 2D texture, and we use the red channel from the noise. And now we modify this. So now the opacity comes through. And then we set this decal to be alpha blended, so it's smoother.
And then you change the default material.
Yep, on the underlying object.
You could put some other texture, like
that's right,
cross hatching or something.
Yep. So this is the underlying material of the object.
Oh yeah. And that could actually be a different input 2D texture.
Yep, that's right. So you can make that a different one. So if I had another input signal, which we don't here, but if you did, you could definitely. Well, we can map it to a different offset of the texture, for instance. So on this underlying material here, default material, let's use maybe we'll use the spout to be the. I'll do a diffuse map, but we'll use a different offset for it. So, so the tile there is per object.
So, could those items could they run into another decal emitter out there and get re-stamped?
They can, but again, the decal emitter only updates when it moves. So when we move it, it then updates the decal emitter. So you would have to, it does have a function on it. If we had F1 the decal emitter, you could call in script called, there's no spray, emit burst will emit a spray.
Burst parentheses 1.
Yeah, exactly. We'll spray out one thing from it.
Interesting.
But it's pretty cool. Yeah.
That seems like a pretty good way.
All right.
Cool.
Thanks for joining us, and I hope this answers the question. And let us know if you have any other questions.
Great question, NEWP.
That's right.
Visuals.
Great question.